loss to Iowa State in St. Louis in Kentucky, ending their season in the round of 32 with a 19-point loss, being up as many as 12 early in the game, and just offensively not being able to create any production down the stretch, losing the game by 19, having it a 5-point game with about 15 minutes left. Kentucky just not being able to stay in control of the game, having a 7-point lead with about 3 minutes left, and then ended up blowing that, not scoring for the last 2 minutes, going down one, going into halftime, where Kentucky only scored 33 points in the second half, where Iowa State scored 51. And a lot of those were off easy opportunities, off of Kentucky's turnovers, where Kentucky had 20 turnovers in this game, making 9 threes, but was not able to put up the high numbers that we would like to see. Today, we'll just be talking about the game, a little bit of compilation of the season, not a lot, just a little bit of talk, stay-go decisions, not as much as we will in the future and going into this off season. The Cats was a disappointing year, losing in the round of 32 as a 7 seed, going down to a talented Iowa State team, but without one of their best players in Jefferson, but was able to get some production from Milovic and Lipsey were the two guys that really stepped up for them, allowing Iowa State to take control of the game late. But Iowa State early on struggled to shoot the ball and really was not able to get early rhythm compared to Kentucky. And they were able to control the pace and the style of this game, where Kentucky just was not able to really get any productive scoring going, especially in the second half. And we're just not able to have positive momentum. Did an okay job on the glass, 31-30 Iowa State, but pretty much everything favored them. They had more assists, less turnovers. Kentucky shot the ball a little bit better, but made the same amount of threes. But we were 47, they were 46. It was just those points off turnovers, and Kentucky's just inability to score against this high-pressure Iowa State defense. And Iowa State was able to make a change semi-medium of the first half, where Kentucky really wasn't able to get as many clean looks. They weren't helping as much on drives, where early on Kentucky was able to make a bunch of early threes, made 6 threes in the first half. Colin Chandler had 2 made threes in the first 5 minutes of the game, where they were helping a lot, giving us some decent looks, and they were pressuring the ball more and not helping as much. And that Kentucky just did not have an answer creating off the bounce. There really wasn't anything that Kentucky tried or did or could have really done that worked. It was just Kentucky really wasn't able to handle the pressure and handle the ball. Denzel Aberdeen went out for a couple minutes, and that's when Iowa State went on their big run to end the first half and really kind of got Kentucky behind and really put a lot on his shoulders. He had a good game. He had 20 points. He did have 4 turnovers, one of his higher turnover games. He had 4 turnovers, 20 points, 6 for 14 from the field, 4 for 9 from 3. Good efficiency there, and knocked down some big threes early that allowed Kentucky to put themselves ahead. And he had 1 rebound, 1 assist. And then Otega Owe had, I thought, a pretty decent game for his standards. At least he had 18 points, 8 for 16 from the field, only 1 for 5 from 3. Had 8 boards, but no assists, 4 turnovers, 4 fouls. Was just in foul trouble quite a bit in this game. At times, that's the 4 minutes he sit was the 4 minutes of foul trouble. Overall, Kentucky just did not get much production outside of those two. Only 2 double-digit scores for the Cats, and Kentucky just was not able to create any momentum for themselves, especially in that second section. After Kentucky did not have some high-quality looks from 3, Cam Williams had 5 points. He was 1 for 2 from the field, knocked down a couple free throws, had 2 assists. But just overall, just didn't get enough production from the other guys. Malachi Moreno struggled. He had 4 points, 6 rebounds, 3 assists. But overall, just did not finish well around the rim. Had a couple bad passes that were kind of, I don't know if they count them as turnovers. But he just felt very out of control, and especially outside the early minutes, this team just felt overall out of control and just not playing with the pace or the understanding that they needed to win this game and put themselves in a position to win this game going into against a good Iowa State team, even though they did not have Jefferson, one of their best players. Yelovich, he had 2 points, 5 rebounds. And then we talked about all the starters. Modi Abate, he had 4 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists. And no one else other than him and Cam Williams had more than 3 points. Jasper had 3 points, but he had a bunch of turnovers. They had him listed for only 2, but it felt like he had like 12 at certain points. It felt like every minute he was on the floor. He only played 6 minutes, was 1 for 3 from the field, but just was not ready for the moment as a freshman for the spotlight against a high-pressure, high-intensity Iowa State team that's just going to get up on you and is going to try to speed you up as much as they can. And Kentucky, like I said, just came up short. There was not enough ball handling on this roster. Point guard's always been a big discussion for this team with Jalen Lowe going out, not having a true PG1. Denzel Aberdeen did a great job sliding over. But that's not his natural position as a true 2. And what I've always kind of said with this team, what really hurt them is the Yaxel Lindenberg recruitment, where Kentucky wasn't really in it, but they needed Yaxel, and Caden Lewis decommitment, a guy that is playing really well, averaging like 16 points per game at Villanova and has been a really good playmaker. Would have gave Kentucky legitimate depth at the guard position, somebody who can truly play make and score at the point guard position. With Jasper's just not ready for that yet as a true freshman. We'll see if he ends up returning next year. The portal does open after the Final Four. It's that Monday after. We'll see the development of all these guys and who ends up staying and going. The guys that are out of eligibility is Otega Owe and Denzel Aberdeen, 2 guys. And then everybody else still has eligibility left. Right now, the solid guys to come back are Colin Chandler, Malachi Moreno, and Cam Williams are the main 3. Kind of what I've been hearing. The toss-ups are Modi Abate, Yelovich, Brandon Garrison, and then Jalen Lowe are kind of those top toss-up guys that we'll see what ends up happening and who fits where. But overall, just in this season, it was disappointing not having the production, not having some of the pieces you were looking forward to, and just having some guys leave and some guys get hurt that really, I thought, hurt what this team could have been. They ended up being somewhere in the top 20, 25, I would have to say. But this team needed some of that high-end impact upside other than Otega that I thought JQ and Jalen Lowe could have given Kentucky, but we'll just never know. But this season, and now it's on to year 3 with Mark Pope, and it's going to be a big year of building the roster, finding your pieces. Hopefully the goal to me is to have at least 5 guys back from this roster, to have some continuity, some structure in your offense. Understanding, guys, my goal would be have 4 starters back. It depends on what Jalen Lowe's shoulder development. They know the most about it. They're the ones going to their surgeon, and we'll see how that development goes. That's progressing properly. I would consider him my PG1, but we'll see how that progresses. And then we would have the other 3 that I said that were pretty firm stays on that roster with him. So we'll have to see how this Kentucky lineup keeps on building out as guys in the coming probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks decide stay and go decisions. We'll have probably some transfer inners. We've had some of those already. Tyron Stokes' decision is still kind of up in the air. Bill Self potential retirement from Kansas could change some of that for the Jayhawks. I don't myself know who could potentially replace him at the moment, if it would be internal, but that recruitment would change. Jason Hart officially leaving. He's going to SMU staff. He was the lead recruiter, but still the relationships there with Coach Pope and all the other staff. Kentucky added another staff member in that's going to help with recruitment and just understanding this team and evaluating players. And he has familiar with Coach Pope and his staff, and that is Kenny Brown, assistant director of player development. So his main job is going to be just looking at players from all over the country, evaluating who is really good, who's not, who you want to go after, what their value is, just kind of a player recognition role and player evaluation role, helping Coach Pope to understand what guys are worth. And he wasn't a big fan of this roster overall coming into the season. That's why he was a part of last year's roster building, but he'll be a part of this coming year's roster building. I'll be interested to see what his fingerprints look like as a player evaluator and the guys he brings to Pope that he thinks could be high impact players for the Cats. And see how this Kentucky team changes with the new approach a little bit, trying to keep the balance of shooting. I think they have some pieces on this roster that would allow them to do both. With their shooting and still have linked athleticism. I think Colin Chandler and Cam Williams both allow you to do that at a high level. Andre Yelovich, going to have to add some physicality. If you bring back Yelovich, he probably needs to become more physical. If you bring back Mo, you're probably going to me, look at getting a stretch five to put next to him. But we'll just have to see as this team shakes out who stays, who goes, and who's willing to take what role. So Yelovich and Mo came in to compete for the starting spot. But most likely next year, neither of them will be the starter. We're looking for a Tyron Stokes or someone in the transfer portal. So that's all from the Quest Number 9 podcast. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. And you can go follow me at Quest Number 9 on Instagram and Twitter to stay up to date for all things Kentucky basketball. And I'll be coming out with new episodes about the transfer portal and Kentucky's entries and potential recruiting updates coming up the next couple of weeks. Go Cats, and I'll see you next time.